The seven-time world champion is going through a bit of a slump. Lewis Hamilton hasn't won a race in 2022, and there have been speculations that his career might be close to an end. His legacy certainly stands out as one of the best to ever do it, but the question remains, how can he make a comeback? Today we'll look at what Braun Russell has to say about Hamilton's situation and how he could make a comeback. First up, we'll look at the tough season Hamilton's been having. There were a lot of expectations from the 37-year-old coming into this year's F1 Mercedes tournament. He's lost 6 races back-to-back, and right now, his teammate George Russell has a lead of 34 points over him. From being the best in the world to not even being the best on his team, this might be considered a passing of the torch moment if Hamilton continues to struggle, but it would be too early to say. According to Lewis, he's been having a string of bad luck all year. There are several other quantifiable factors, such as his age and the car he's driving, but the fact is that this is the worst season he's had in over a decade, making it to the podium only once in 7 races. Toto Wolff, who's Hamilton's boss, has said the pendulum will swing. That could mean the team still believes in their star's capability, but it could also mean they're putting pressure on him to perform. If the team does get impatient, these last few races might prove to be a must-win for the British driver. One thing's for sure, not everyone wants to be in the position he's in right now. Next up, let's see how bad it really is. As someone who holds multiple world records and is considered one of the greatest of all time, it's easy to be a victim of expectations. So we'll be taking a look at the scoreboard so we can get to the good old numbers. Lewis is at number 6 with just 50 points, and as previously mentioned, his teammate is 34 points ahead of him. Right below Russell, at 83 points, is Carlos Sainz representing Ferrari. Another Ferrari driver, Leclerc, is the runner-up with 116 points. And at the top of the list is Max Verstappen representing Red Bull with a staggering 125 points. This is the official ranking after 7 rounds. So for Hamilton to catch up, he'll have to overcome the 75-point difference in the next 15 rounds. Hamilton got himself onto the podium in an unlikely turn of events. At the Bahrain GP, he and Russell were at number 5th and 6th. Things weren't looking up, but 2 Red Bull drivers couldn't finish, which led to Hamilton cracking into the top 3, and it only went downhill from there. But before we compare Hamilton and Russell's performances race by race, Russell only has the lead of 4-3, so the 34-point difference doesn't offer the best reflection. But credit to the young gun of the team for his performance this season. He's even managed to take the lead over Hamilton, and that wasn't something we were expecting. Moving on, Ross Brawn speaks up in favor of Hamilton. The Silver Arrow team hasn't gotten the results they were hoping for this season. Brawn has been around the game for many decades, and he believes this isn't the end of the road for his guy. The Mercedes team has been making progress, but they still need to climb the rankings higher if they want to get on top. So far, even Russell hasn't managed to win a race either, even though he's in his best season. The managing director of Team Mercedes was interviewed by F1 Insider and was asked about Hamilton's shape. He thought Lewis was in the twilight of his career. He's certainly closer to the end than he was to the start, but he thinks the young Briton can still make a comeback. It's the first time in many years that Hamilton has cared that he can't win a race, and he's putting all his attention into trying to change that. Russell, on the other hand, is trying to prove his worth, which is why he's doing better. Whether or not Lewis will make a comeback depends on how he handles this kind of adversity. Ross called it a character test for him. Perhaps it's the fact that young Russell is hungrier, or maybe Hamilton has accomplished enough in his career to not have that fire anymore. Up next, the comparison to Schumacher's comeback. The infamous comeback of Schumacher was back in 2010. The German racer had previously retired in 2006, and there were many question marks coming into this one. At the time, Braun was at Team Mercedes and served as team principal, and he said on record that he can see similarities between what Schumacher went through and the set of challenges that Hamilton is facing. He said that as a driver, when you're in a tough spot, you can decide whether you want to create a solution for the team to get out of the mess, or you can become a part of the problem and make things harder. Back in 2010, Michael made his comeback, and he chose to be the solution. He tried his best to redefine his role in the team. This helped to build the entire squad around him, and that same squad went on to win 8 consecutive titles. Ross defined Schumacher's actions as a sacrifice. He played an important role in building the future of the team and put his own personal goals aside for the collective good. According to Braun, Michael was still very fast despite his 3-year layoff. He even went on to secure a pole in 2012, but his more important contribution was to his younger teammate Nico Rosberg, who was like Russell is to Hamilton. Nico was young and was very underestimated, but he went on to win many titles even against Lewis. Ross thinks Lewis will definitely make a comeback. He believes that because that's what his experience has taught him, and knowing the guy personally, he knows the 37-year-old is capable of pulling it off. Next, in other related news, George Russell gives his honest assessment. Russell knows that his team is a step behind the rivals. Many people blame the bouncing issue of Mercedes, but George went on record to say that bouncing has been a challenge to overcome, but they're trying their best to get on top of it. He said he doesn't care about comfort as long as he's able to perform, but so far, it hasn't been possible. Russell spoke about how he and his teammates have been trying to get every last bit of performance out out of the car and testing the limits, but it just keeps bouncing too much. The young Briton said that they've got some work to do because if it keeps going like this, Red Bull and Ferrari will stay one step ahead of them in almost every race. Next up, F1 Singapore Grand Prix results. Sergio Perez managed to give his best performance at Singapore Grand Prix 2022 to win the race by beating his rival from Team Ferrari. Verstappen, who still stays at number 1 in the overall rankings, finished 7th after having a frustrating start. The Mexican racer had an intense battle against Leclerc. He managed to clear his rival by 7 seconds. This was his second win of the season. In his entire career, he's won 12 races in total. Perez admits that this was his best performance, and it certainly wasn't easy. He managed to be in control the entire time. The tire warm-up was challenging, and the last few laps are never a piece of cake, but he managed to push through and got the win. Perez was even given a 5-second penalty for not staying within 10 cars length, which he didn't agree with, but he still managed to get the job done against all odds. Finally, Hamilton won't be hard on himself for his mistake. Soon after the half distance, Hamilton was chasing Sainz, and he slid on and crashed into a barrier. He was eventually able to drive again, but he couldn't perform as the wing was damaged. This led to him having to change, and he couldn't get the lead he wanted. When Lewis was asked about this after the race, he said things like this happen at times, and he won't punish himself for a mistake like this. He knew it was over when it happened, but he still tried to carry on. He said the conditions played a big factor and the problems with the car got amplified in the rain. Lewis initially thought that there was no wing damage, and maybe if he'd known earlier, it might have saved some time. For the first few corners, nothing seemed to be wrong, but after that, the sparks went out and he knew there was a problem. Hamilton was upset about being stuck behind Sainz. He didn't know why Carlos was going so slow, and because of the hard conditions, he wasn't able to overtake him. He said if he'd been at third, he would have kept up with all the guys. And as a wrap of this video, do you think Hamilton will make a comeback later on in the season? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.